Yes, Angeline, you can start.
Good morning, all. It's a brand new day and a great new dawn, and I welcome you all to the forenoon session in tandem. I'm Angeline Jennifer of PG student, Department of English, Queen Mary's College, coordinator and compiler of this session. Literature as a field thrives on the intersection with other fields, and science is no alien to the field of literature engagement. Today's symposium topic, Literature, Medicine and Well-being. It's a privilege to welcome our chairperson for the symposium is Dr. Samuel Rufus, Assistant Professor of English, Associate Dean of Students, Madras College, Chennai. He is a patron in tandem. Every day, Sir enriches us with daily literary sources. Sir's personal blog, Inspirational Literary Musing, serves as an inspiration for many young minds. I welcome I welcome you, sir. I also welcome our four paper presenters, Ms. T. Janani, Language Instructor, Karky Research Foundation, Chennai. Dr. Uma Maheswari, Assistant Professor and Head of Department of Sanskrit, Queen Mary's College, Chennai. Dr. Sam Golden, Assistant Professor of English, Madras Christian College, Chennai, and Dr. Dennisa Davidson, Consultant Psychiatrist Research Center, New Zealand, for accepting our invite. I welcome you all. For further program, without further ado, we go in and welcome Dr. Samuel Rufus for program. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those warm words. We'll straight away go into the symposium. And I'm so happy and grateful to Dr. Preeti Srinivasan, the head of the Department of English, Queen Mary's College, for regularly giving us such insightful, engaging sessions, symposiums. I think it's a pioneering initiative by any institution in general. So, at the higher education level. So, hats off to Queen Mary's College for having come off with this wonderful initiative, which will ignite young minds and give us new vistas in the avenues of research. So, without much ado, let me straight away go into the topic at hand: literature, medicine, and well being. So, I suggested literature and medicine, but Dr. Preeti added a word, a beautiful word that gives a beautiful closure to this topic: literature, medicine. Together, they give us what is called well being. And that gives us the importance of this wonderful symposium. Here we have with us an amazing psychiatrist. She has consented to be with us, although we are hours apart, and she's graciously accepted to be with us this morning and evening for Dr. Dennisa Davidson, a pioneering psychiatrist, and another doctor of well-being. And I welcome Dr. Dennisa Davidson. Before that, just a few words about her. I've known her personally for almost 40 years, should I say, and she did her medicine in Velo, CMC, and then she practiced medicine for long. And not only that, she is also an avid blogger. For more than 20 years, I've seen her blogs, The Doctor's God, and other blogs where she passionately writes about the literary connectors there in her writings, because she's an avid reader also. Without much ado, let me straight away hand over the session to Dr. Dennisa Davidson. Uh, Dr. Dennisa, over to you. We are not able to hear you, Dr. Dennisa.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just figured out to unmute my mic and figure out in time to keep my video on as well. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. This is a first for me. I've never done anything like this before, and I'm hoping it works. So, um, is there a way that I can share my screen at all by any chance?
Yes, yes, you can, Dr. Dennisa.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So maybe I'll make a start there. Yeah, a little bit about myself if you want to know anything more.
Yes.
I am a
Yes.
child and adolescent psychiatrist. I practice both in the public and in the private system in New Zealand. So actually 4 days a week, I work for counties, Marikau DHP, District Health Board, and 1 day a week I do some private work in recenter. My own sub-interest in child specialty is how our life experiences affect us, which is generally called developmental trauma. And I think for this whole symposium, capturing that word well-being is certainly a very nice way to round off, and it brings meaning and flavor into it. Yeah, and Rufus had invited me to this, so thank you very much, Rufus. I will not declare that we are cousins, yeah, related, and that is kind of how Rufus knows me for 40 years, from the time you were born to now. Yeah, okay. So I will show my screen now, and hold on. Shares. I'm just figuring this out, so sorry for that. How do I'm used to Zoom, but I'm not used to this.
Yes. At the bottom, you have an arrow that points upwards. There's a box with an arrow that points upwards.
Yeah, it says share, and can you
Present
see
now?
my screen? Can you see my screen?
No.
No.
It says present now. There is an option there.
Oh, it says present now. Okay.
Yes.
Let's just see.
The fourth one from the left.
Yeah, I saw that screen. It says share, and I shared. Maybe I'll have to get my son to come and help me.
No problem. No problem. Yes.
I'll just take him. Yeah, I will try. Cancel. I'll start over again. So present now. Yeah, I'm clicking on that.
Yes.
Your entire screen, a window, or tab.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
A window.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Got it. Thank you. Yes. So I'm not as very tech savvy, as you can see. So I was wondering, what do we do about this? And well, let's start. It sounded like the grand confluence of literature, mental health, and medicine. So a cafe with a cup of coffee is always good for mental health, isn't it? What we're going to be looking at today will be how medicine can be shaped with literature. I was kind of listening to how, there is the influence of medicine on literature, but I've been thinking around how medicine can be shaped by literature. And then there is a different genre. I'm going to be looking at different genre of literature that has something to do with medicine, mental health, and well-being. And this comes out of my own personal reading, except the first one. There's another genre of self-reflections by physicians, and then there is reflections on childhood trauma, life experience, both story and self-narrative forms. I'll be comparing that a little bit. And then one of the stories I actually tell my patients as an anxiety antidote, and how literature can be used in well-being. And that will be what it is. So yes, out of the overflow of the heart, and the overflow of the heart comes from life experiences, doesn't it? The pen flows too. So this, except for man's search for meaning, and more about patterns of attachment, I haven't actually read The Ego and It. I know the content from other sources, but that is a group of books that was one of the initial and fundamental literature that shaped the course of psychiatry. At this point in time, not everything is taken as set in stone, what they tell us about, because we do have more awareness and knowledge about neurobiology. But they were some really amazing books that came out of lots of observation, um, thought about what was going on, and then taking the pain of documenting each one of that. These are a little bit more contemporary about what happens with literature, uh, with documenting the science of the brain in literary form. What Happened to You is actually a really nice new book that's by a child psychiatrist called Bruce Perry, who has written it with Oprah Winfrey. It's recently come out, and it's a very conversational dialogue kind of book, which delves into the roots of who we are and why we feel the way we feel. The Brain That Changes Itself, that's another really good book of anecdotes of various clinical experiences. Body Keeps the Score and Deepest Well, again, is personal experience of physicians who have ventured into newer zones in their own practice, stepping out of their comfort zone and looking at what life experiences have done to both our brain and our body. And then there is this genre of self reflections by physicians about their own lives and their own practice. So, this Gifted Hands is Ben Carson's autobiography. That's a really lovely one worth reading. It gives an insight into their lives, how their experiences shaped them into becoming physicians, and also the kind of physicians. Now, Gray Matter is a neurosurgeon who writes about how he brings his faith into practice. And he uses very personal, he kind of really goes very personal down deep into it. This Is Going to Hurt is a very light reading kind of book. This is written by a chap who trained in medicine, practiced it for a couple of years, I think, and then he's now actually a full-time stand-up comedian. This little short story called My Birthday Story is my own personal claim to fame, so to speak. Got it published in a college journal. So this, I think most of you might know this, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is the experience of a patient in a mental health system way back in time. Very thankfully, we do not have this kind of systems now. They are a lot better. But yes, now I kind of like a little bit more talking about the literature that I've just shown. These are both books about childhood trauma and life experiences. One is an imaginary story, Anne of Green Gables. I love that whole series. And when you look at this kind of literature, what it actually tells me, what I got out of it when I was reading it, was the excellent way the author has gone into small little details of how the child feels and then connects it with what was going on in the life of that child, so that linking it back and forth to show how that has actually made the child who she became. I'm not sure how many of you might have read Anne of Green Gables, but that is really lovely. And in that, Anne is adopted into a family. And Anne says, these are Anne's words: I've never really belonged to anybody, not really. That shows reflects the deep human need to belong, to feel belonged. And when we do not feel belonged, what I observe is people are like a bit like a rudderless boat. When we feel belonged, it's like we have an anchor. And when we do not feel belonged, it's a little bit like floating in a big, vast ocean um, without that anchor. And that's such a deep human need. Now, if you look at this, the story of my experience with truth, it is a first person narrative of something very, very similar. Quite a lot of traumas in the childhood, and again, a sense of belonging. I took it to mean that father had no love in his heart for me. So, that sense of belonging and that need to feel belong. The first person narrative I found was really raw, and it really crushes your heart when you read it because it comes straight from the heart, too. Well, this is one of the books I read quite early in my life, and I absolutely loved it. Read the book, I watched the movie, and I thought, well, I like E.R. Braithwaite, and I also have to have Sidney Poitier there, so I put both covers there. But that many of you may have read it or seen the movie, and that showcases not only the individual experiences of trauma, but also how do we deal with each other in a world where there's so many people who have suffered relational trauma. Relational trauma is the biggest trauma human beings can experience. We can be poor, we can be without things, we can get beaten up, but if we have a truly good, sound, meaningful relational connection with someone, even if it is just one person, it can make all the difference in life. And I think this book showcases the importance of that in an educational setting. It's a beautiful narrative of how you actually have beauty for ashes. Um, the personal interest that the teacher shows in each of the children's lives, I think that makes a huge difference to their lives. And it did not matter that they were in poverty and they did not have enough resources, but they began to shine. Well, this is another compare and contrast that I'm going to do. This is The Secret Garden. You by now probably realize that most of my books are a little bit on the kiddish side, so to speak. Um, since I am a child psychiatrist, I think I can excuse that for myself. But A Secret Garden is another book I really, really enjoyed reading. In that, again, the story about a child who goes from the UK to India and then, back from there to the UK. Everything happening when she was very, very little. When she comes back to the UK, she has lost both her parents and she comes to live with an uncle. The changes in her life are quite huge. And the story tells us how she never really had any form of relational connection with either of her parent. So this is a child who would have struggled quite a bit to relate and to regulate. The importance of life experiences that is showcased in these books is that human beings are designed to feel regulated, that is kind of in control of our inner selves by using relationships. So that's called relational regulation. And if we do not have that relationship early on in life, that can cast a very, very long shadow later on into our adulthood, because the brain is developing really rapidly. The earlier it is in life, and then it's forming templates for the future. So small little things like if there is a baby who's crying and the mother is not able to attend to the baby because, say, the mother was either too preoccupied, too depressed, or in this day and age maybe the mother was Instagramming, who knows. But then that period of time when the baby is suffering from a wet nappy could be enormous stress, because all the systems, physiological systems inside of the baby are going to be turned on, switched on. And the brain of that baby is going to learn that um, I cannot get help. I feel distressed. And that'll be easily switching on into the stress mode as the baby grows older, if it is not addressed adequately quickly. So that's kind of the importance of early life experiences. And when I read books like this, that's sort of what I'm thinking in my mind. Oh, so this child, I try to put myself in the child's shoes and say, wow, that's kind of the experience this child had. And then you see this child grows up and goes to the UK, does not really connect very well with anyone, and needs that personal space. By this time, human beings have actually become triggers. Human beings cause a sense of fear, and she wants to find her own space where she can feel more regulated without all those people, and that is her secret garden. And that's a beautiful story. And then this comes a little boy into the garden she makes friends with. And then, yeah, well, like all good stories, and everything is happy at the ending. But yeah, she says, people never like me, and I never like people. That is a classical example of human beings triggering each other. You see, when our stress responses are dysfunctional and quickly go into fight, flight, or freeze states. And human beings are definitely the cause of healing, but also the cause of harm to each other. And when that happens, we get triggered. When we get triggered, one person is heightened. And even if other people try to connect with that person, it can be really, really hard. And so after some time, the people who are trying to connect may give up and withdraw. And that would reflect in these words: people never like me, and I never like people. That's a really nice way of communicating that when I meet another person, I'm getting triggered. I cannot deal with it. It becomes too much. It is overwhelming. And that is a very profound statement of childhood trauma. And similar is voiced in this book. This is a young author in Auckland who again has a experience of moving between countries. Came from India to New Zealand, and then after living here for about 20 years, he moved to Europe, and then came back very quickly because her life fell apart there. So she actually dwells on many different things, and she expresses the same things: hopeless and helpless, friendless and worthless. And she says these really beautiful words: my mind was becoming my enemy. And you know, when our mind, what she's saying is, my state of mind was not allowing me to live the life that I want. When that happens, that is a really, really hard place to be in. Again, finding a relational connection can make a huge difference. She talks about that feeling of isolated, but also in her life stage, she is in her mid-30s when she writes this. She talks about what it is like to be a single woman. And she is both an illustrator and an author, and she has done her own illustrations. That's why I put these illustrations here. Those are her own illustrations, and they really tie well with her writing. I thought this is a fantastic visual way to capture the feeling of probably what a lot of young professional or people feel today, because the age of settling down with a partner is certainly going up, and the world is changing. And with COVID, there is also ups and downs in our social lives, isn't it? So that was a beautiful picture. And the other thing she's done is actually capture the course of her life. She's put in all the stuff that stood out in various life stages and how it has affected her. She connects it to how it has brought her to the place that she is today. And for this reason, I really loved reading this book. Again, it's a very heart-rending, straight from the heart, passionate, simple piece of writing, but beautifully illustrated. This is a book I really have enjoyed. I've seen the movie, and I often use this as in a metaphorical way for the patients I see who come with a lot of insecurity and anxiety. Sorry. Um, so what I use this book for to tell them is there may be a lot of things in life that look really scary, but at the end of this story, when the curtain opens, the Wizard of Oz that everybody was scared about turned out to be just a small little man with a squeaky voice, who was not scary, who was actually scared of Dorothy, far more than Dorothy was scared of him. And this book also again captures a lot more. It captures different kind of personalities that we bring to ourselves. And as human beings, we have a mixture of personalities within each person in reasonable balance. Only when any certain personality goes to an extreme, it becomes a personality disorder. So here, this is about how we use literature in mental health, and also about literature and well-being. So what I'm going to talk about is narrative therapy, something called mentalization, which you may know already, and metacognition. Narrative therapy is a form of healing by storytelling. As someone put it, it's understanding and living our lives through our stories. So what they usually do is they use a third-person narrative, such as telling a story of this little boy who was exploring a space, found a door, went in and found that it was a dungeon, and then he chose to stay inside that dungeon and found there were lots of other people there too. But being in a dungeon is quite difficult. It was within his power to open the door and come out, but it took him some time to open the door and come out. And then we're trying to get people to understand that's a state of mind. The dungeon is a state of mind. It's a heightened state of mind. It's an angry state of mind. And we do have the resources within ourselves to use to open the door and come outside that state of mind. And how narrative therapy is done is there is actually a storyteller, and the storyteller will narrate the story. We'll read the story out to a group of kids. And then as they read, they will pause and they will reflect. So this kind of stuff helps to process the past, reframe the present, and also thus to look at a new future. Mentalization. So mentalization simply means, sorry, I need a sip of water. Mentalization simply means that we are able to put ourselves into the shoes of another person and try to think as they think and understand their thoughts and feelings. When I read books like Shakespeare's plays, I read it very, very long time ago. So if you ask me anything from it, I may not remember now. And Harry Potter, well, I loved reading Harry Potter to my children. Actually, I had this habit of reading to my kids right from, I think, probably pregnancy. I used to sing to them and read to them. And as soon as they were born, I was still reading to them. And my eldest, my daughter, When she was 1, she was reading. I used to read Tintin to her bedtime, and I remember that before she could talk, she seemed to actually have known what I was reading, because if I was sleepy and I made a mistake, she couldn't talk, but she'd nudge me. And then I will have to wake up and read it to her correctly. And her first words were from Tintin, Calculus Affair. So, anyway, I read all these Harry Potter books to my kids. And I've diverted from the topic, but then, it will be extremely hard for an author to write about different characters if they cannot mentalize. They have to necessarily put themselves into totally different shoes of characters, opposite poles, and go into details, minutiae of their thinking to be able to come out with genius works like this. So these people, I think, would have been geniuses to come up with a literature that is phenomenally got diverse kind of characters in detail. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. So yeah, that's best done with a cup of for some people coffee, for me it is tea, or could be even hot chocolate. So that's a metacognition, thinking about thinking when you're reading a book about the characters. How does this character feel? Why is this character doing this? What could be going on in this character's mind? And then thinking about the author. What was the author thinking when they wanted this character to be this way? What could have been the life experiences of the author that they could relate to a character like that, understand a character like that, and find it necessary to place a character like that in the story? And then society. What is societal thinking? What is the societal mood? How are we as a society pulling things together for each other? Are we thinking individually? Are we looking at individual people as unique people? Or are we having kind of a crowd mentality? Or are we having a mixture, a bit of both? Sometimes, a longitudinal framework or a horizontal framework, cross-sectional framework. So that's metacognition, thinking about thinking, that makes us rise above the present and have a more helicopter view. That is metacognition. And that actually is really good for leadership, and also to get past stuff in our life that can be quite difficult in the present. And with that, I come to the end of this presentation. I hope it was helpful in some ways, but then so that's kind of it. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Dennisa Davidson, for giving us such wonderful insights filled with literary anecdotes, illustrations. So shows the range of your reading and your passion for literature. And you had a wonderful lesson for us in the ways that you read it out for your kids. Just last evening, we had a program where we were discussing this concept. Today, the art of storytelling has waned, has diminished a lot. So, the art of storytelling is diminished thanks to the cell phones that have taken over subtly the place of the storyteller, the blessed storyteller. Just last evening, I was saying how we were lying in the hands of our mothers and listening to those wonderful stories during bedtime. And the same way you said it, the art of storytelling, how narratives help us, like you beautifully, put it, narrative as therapy. Narrative becomes therapy. And Viktor Frankl again, logotherapy. So how literature can be therapy for us, and the process of empathy that we can possibly do when we connect to them, metacognition, thinking about thinking, amazing the range. If there are any questions for Dr. Dennisa, you may ask them quickly. We can take one or two before we go on to the next presenter, because she has other programs up her sleeve right away. So any questions for Dr. Dennisa, you may please ask them. Introduce yourself and ask them.
Good morning, Dr. Dennisa. I'm Preeti, and I work at Queen Mary's College. So just wanted to tell you, appreciate your lecture, and took me back to my childhood. The books that you like and you've read To Serve with Love and Anne of the Green Gables. I just love that. And I think we should read to our children, and as teachers, we should promote this healing that comes through reading. So, thank you so much for that connection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Denisa, for this for the insights that you've given us today. I was just wondering what the topic would be like. I've listened in the start of the pandemic. By the way, I'm Sri Lata. I just connect with this program. I'm a retired teacher from Chelamal, the Pachepas group. Okay, and I'm so happy. I read out all these works, some of these works to my child too, and my son till today, I think now that he's 25 nearly, he tells me that he's happy that you introduced me to some of the right books. I don't know. I used to read to him as long as he was in the seventh standard. That was all. I mean that because he would be too lazy to read. So I think he didn't do much active reading of any literary text after, because they all went into engineering and they read all other kinds of books. So today I realized that so much of this reading has helped us prepare as literature people. I think prepare to understand and so today I realized that this kind of reading of these books, all of this One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and all those other books that you have introduced today, many of them I have read, not the Victor Frank and the latest ones I haven't. So this is how important is reading for the mental health. Actually, we helps to cope with stress, and it helps mental well-being. Today we are introduced into the world of that movies in the internet series and all horrible kinds of pictures, coming to, and all kinds of video games. All these things, I think, if they took a back seat and our children listened to even audiobooks, I think they would their imaginations would be rightly tuned and we'd have a healthier generation. Thank you again for giving us one more this kind of an eye opener. It was an eye opener. We could continue to do that, at least to our grandchildren when they come. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. I just add that oftentimes when I see my patients, I put into their therapy plan bedtime storytelling by the parent. I tell the parent it's really important that you should sit with your child and read them a story before they go to sleep. And it helps. It really helps.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think participants, you could mute your phones or mute your devices. I think Ms. Sherin Muller, you should mute your mobile. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Srilata. You gave some wonderful insights from personal experience, how you read out to your kid and how he remembers that with gratitude. The way Dr. Dennisa has said, no, it becomes therapy, a therapy plan for a patient, as bedtime stories, something that is so invigorating, something that we can follow. This is something Dr. Preeti usually advocates during the course of her lectures, also reading out. And she does use songs also as therapy. During your lecture programs, we have always found her using songs as therapy. And reading again, she reads out lesson plans and she reads out texts. And I'm so happy that we had a wonderful session this morning. And Dr. Srilata, one sentence that she beautifully said, how reading helps us prepare and understand and empathize. And reading helps in mental health and mental well-being. Thank you for that, ma'am. And thank you. If there are no more questions, thank you,
Sir,
Dr.
may I
Dennisa.
have one? May I introduce my research scholar, Nancy?
Please,
Since
ma'am.
Dr. Dennisa is from CMC Vellore, just like to share that Nancy is working on life stories from Vellore.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Nancy?
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, Nancy. Lovely to hear that.
Hello, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm doing an biography, ma'am.
Okay.
Biography of missionaries at Bellu.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, missionary doctors.
That'll be very, very lovely. I've read 10
Thank you.
Fingers for God and Torch of Life.
Okay.
So
Nancy, tell her
Nice
which
meeting
books.
you.
Tell her that you're doing on brand and all.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Ida,
oh, yes.
Paul
Paul
Brand,
Brand. Yeah, yeah. Ida Scudder and Paul Brand.
and two more doctors, ma'am. Mary Varghese
Yes.
and Rambo,
Okay.
Dr. Rambo.
Okay.
All are from Vellore,
Beautiful.
Vellore CMC.
Beautiful. I used to find the
Thank
biographies very, very inspirational. That's another
you. Yes.
genre I love. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank
for that.
you.
Ma'am, may I?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Dennisa, it was very interesting presentation. Uh, are you? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
You
yes.
please go.
I can hear you.
Ma'am, even similar thoughts are in Sanskrit literature also, like how literature and reading habits makes us more pleasant, and it also adds our ethical values, isn't it? So this is what reflected in Sanskrit. Also, they say the Vedic texts are like the instructions given by the king, and
Yes.
the literature, the kavyas are the advices given by a wife. So how a wife lovingly shares her good news and guides her husband. Similarly, the kavyas, in a pleasant way, they share the knowledge of truth in a sweet way. There is a reference like that. So I wanted to share such a similar thought from Sanskrit literature.
Beautiful. Actually, Uma,
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind me calling my first name, I actually studied in Delhi, part of my the last bit of my school from year 7, and we had Sanskrit as one of our mandatory languages, and you had to learn some of the shlokas, and one of the things I remember is a small paragraph from a shloka which says that a person without knowledge is trinam na khadannapi jivamanaha tadbhagadeyam paramam pushuna.
साहित्य संगीत
Yes,
साहित्य संगीत कला विहीनः
that's good.
साक्षात् पशुः पुच्छ
Pucha
विषाणहीनः
vishalahina.
तृणं न
Trinam na
खादन्नपि
khadan. Yeah,
जीवमानः स भागधेयं परमं
paramam
पशुः.
pashuna. It's no better
So
than an
one
animal.
Beautiful.
with a divide of learning Sahitya Sangeeta is equivalent to an animal,
That's correct. I love that.
and he doesn't eat grass. That's a fortune for the animals that other. That's
Yes, I found it hilarious, the comparison.
that
And I've
human
always
beings will
remembered
not.
it.
Yeah, will
I learned it when I was in year 8.
affect the animals in the take their food also.
Yes. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful comparison, Dr. Uma. And see, these rich interpolations, they enhance the literary quotient as well as the medicine quotient, bringing together well-being for society in general and for us in particular in this discussion. Thank you so much. Without much ado, uh, with a heart full of thanks to Dr. Dennisa Davidson for being with us, for sparing the time. And we had to replan the session in the morning. Usually we have it in the evenings, as we all know, reschedule it to the morning just because we wanted her to be here, and for those rich amazing insights, I think we'll be putting them together as a write-up shortly and sharing it with all of you. Thank you, Dr. Dennisa, for being with us. Now I call upon the next speaker, Dr. Uma Maheswari, and rich interpolations we are going to get. Just one brief introduction. Sanskrit literature is so vast in its content, and we find references from many scientific literatures. The origin of medicine is traced from Vedic period, and there are several sources of Sanskrit texts that deal purely with medicine, which comes under Ayurveda Shastra. So, the title of Dr. Uma Maheswari's talk, she's the HOD of Sanskrit in Queen Mary's College, and Ayurveda Shastra in Sanskrit literature. Over to you, Dr. Uma Maheshwari. Ma'am, we are not able to hear you. Yeah, you should unmute, I guess. You should unmute, yeah.
Am I audible now, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I have connected with my mobile also. So for the sake of presentation, I'm using my mobile as of now. My video is there in laptop and my audio is in mobile. Please kindly bear with this thing. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Preeti ma'am for encouraging me and suggesting me this topic to share on this day. And it's a nice initiation that that will help us to have a comparative literature study also in the field of medicinal field. And Ayurveda Shastra is a very vast literature. It's like considered as a fifth Veda. Such a vast literature. It's very difficult to give the entire thing. But I'll just throw light on the Ayurvedic aspects that are dealt from Vedas to Kavyas, and the importance of learning Sanskrit language to read and comment upon the read the commentaries and come to a conclusion while translating Ayurvedic texts, whether it is in English or any other languages. So with this, let me present. I'm presenting the screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So we have this line, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It's a popular line, and wherever pure knowledge and happiness is there, the real beauty lies there. So this is with this line, and another line. There in Vedic text, Ano Bhadraha Kratavo Yantu Vishwataha. That means let goodness come from all over the world. So this is the line, and with this good thought that that was given in that is given in Vedic text. So now let me introduce. This is just a screen on Vedas. We have any Shastra is traced to the origin of Vedas. We have 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda. And we have Smritis, Manusmriti, Agnavalkya Smriti, etc. Then Darshana Shastras, which is related with philosophy. Then in Darshana Shastras, we have Purva Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Uttara Mimamsa, and all. And then we have Puranas. We have 18 Puranas. So Bhagavata Puranam is very famous in that. Then Ramayana and Mahabharata are the 2 Itihasas. And to understand the Vedas, we have to understand the 6 Vedangas, which are Vyakarana, grammar, Jyotisha, astronomy and astrology, Nirukta, the etymology. It's a dictionary type of work to understand the terms of Veda, words of Veda. Then Shiksha is the study of phonetics. Then Chandas is the study on the prosody, then Kalpa Sutras is on the rituals. So it's just a small idea that how vast is Sanskrita literature. And in a mythological belief is that how Ayurveda comes. They say that Ayurveda was first narrated by Brahma to Daksha Prajapati, then Daksha Prajapati narrated it to Ashwini Kumaras, and then Ashwini Kumaras told it to Bharadwaja, Indra, then from Indra it went to Bharadwaja Maharishi and Dhanvantari. Now we see Dhanvantari idols in many Ayurvedic hospitals, and he is the Adhidevata for Ayurveda Shastra. So in Dhanvantari Sampradaya, we have his disciples, Shushruta, Aushadeva, Vaitarna, Aurabhya, Koshkalavata, Karavirya, Gopurakshita. Then in Atreya Samhita, Atreya Sampradaya, that is the tradition followed by Atreya followed through Atreya Maharishi. It's Kashyapa, Vasishta, then another Atreya, then Bhrigu. It goes like that. So tradition from Veda, we say through Shruti, through oral, it's an oral tradition, and this is how the parampara has come orally to till date. Now the available text on Ayurvedic Shastra we can see is popular ones are Charaka Samhita, Shushruta Samhita, Jela Samhita, Harita Samhita. So all here we have the text from Indra. There are two schools, Atri and Atri. From Atri stage it is Atreya Punarvasu. Then from there it is Agnivesha is the sage, and Charaka has actually compiled the Agnivesha Samhita. It's an Ayurvedic text. Bhela Samhita, all these things. Harita, Sharapani. Then in under Dhanvantari we have Aupadeva, Vaitarana, so many things. You can browse and get all these things. Then if we see Dhanvantari Maharshi, he gives Chikitsa Tattva Vijnana, Divodasa Chikitsa Darpana, Kashi Raja Chikitsa Kaumudi, Ashwini Kumara Chikitsa Sara Tantra, Nakula Vaidyaka Saraswa. Like that, these were the physicians, like doctors in ancient times, and whatever theories and explanations they gave, these are the books. Chikitsa Tattva Vijnana, all these are the books written by those people. So mostly we find Ayurvedic concepts in Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda, and vastly in Atharva Veda we find Ayurveda Shastra dealt here in comprehension, and the popular Acharyas are Charaka, Shushruta and Vagbhata. Charakacharya was the general physician, and Shushruta, one second. Shushruta is the father of surgery, they say, and Shushruta also gives classification of the bones and their reaction to injuries, varieties of dislocation of joints and fractures of the shaft are given systematically. And he is the first cataract surgery was done by, the methodology is given in Shushruta Samhita, and you can see this picture. He removes the cataract from the eye. He has used some of the surgical items. These are the surgical items mentioned in Sushruta Samhita. Even the methodology of preparing such surgical items and for what purpose such items should be used is also well described in Sushruta Samhita. Then we have Vagbhata's Ashtanga Sangraha and Ashtanga Hridaya. What is Ashtanga? Ashta means 8, and we have Shalya. First one is Shalya. Shalya is surgery, deals with removal of foreign bodies, including abnormal fetus, application of instruments, alkali, cautery, and diagnosis of surgical disease. Then we have Shalatya, which deals with the diseases of supraclavicular parts such as eye, ear, nose, mouth, etc. Then we have Kaya Chikitsa, general medicine, which deals with general diseases such as fever, innate hemorrhage, consumption, etc. Then Bhuta Vidya deals with treatment of patients afflicted with bhutas, and Kaumara Bhritya deals with management of child wetness, purification of defective breast milk, and treatment of diseases. Then Agada Tantra deals with the diagnosis and treatment of animal bites, mainly deals with the toxicology, and Rasayana Tantra deals with the prevention of aging, promotion of lifespan, intellect and strength, and alleviation of disorders. Then Vajikarana Tantra deals with the removal of the defects of semen and sexual stimulation. So now, what is Ayurveda? Charaka Samhita. In Charaka Samhita, we can see the etymology of Ayurveda. Hita hitam sukham dukkham ayustasya hita hitam manam cha tacha yatroktam ayurvedaha sa uchyate. This Ayurveda deals with hita and ahita, good and bad, happy and unhappy, that is pleasant and unpleasant things in our life, and it explains what is appropriate and what is inappropriate in relation to the life, as well as it measures the life expectancy and nature quality.
Just a minute. Participants, kindly mute your mobile devices. Thank you.
Then in Sushruta Samhita, we have the definition of health. What is health? Samadoshaha, Samagnishta, Samadhatu, Malakriyaha, Prasannatmendriya Manaha, Swastaha iti abhiniyate. Doshas are, many of you would have heard Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the terms Vata, Pitta, Kapha. These are the doshas. Then these doshas are needed for the physical body, but they should be in a balanced state. And Agni is heat in the body, and even appetite is a form of Agni, and that Agni should be Sama. That means the appetite should be Sama. That's why doctor, when we go to the doctor, doctor says, how is the appetite? The first question is how is the appetite? So Sama Agni should be there. Then the tissues and metabolic things, Samadhatuhu, Mala Kriyaha, metabolic activities and Dhatu, state of tissues and their metabolic activities should be Sama. Sama means it should be in a balanced way. And not only the physical body, even the mind is related here. Prasanna Atmendriya Manaha. Prasanna means pleasant. It should be pleasant. It should be contented. So only when you have Samadosha, Samagni, Samadhatu, Malakriyaha in physical body, as well as when your state of mind is Prasannatma, Manaha is mind, Prasannatma, Indriya. Indriya is all the sense organs. Senses, 5 senses as well as 5 sense organs. Jnanendriya and Karmendriya. Karmendriya is sense organs and Jnanendriya are 5 senses. All these should be in a pleasant state, that is in a very good content state. So then only you say it is Swastaha, it is a health. So we all can actually relate to our health based upon this definition. And the purpose of the human birth is itself is like dharmartha kama moksha. These are the purusha lakshana. They say why we take the form of the human being is to do dharma, to do our duties, and through the duties only we take artha, the wealth, we attain the wealth, and through that wealth we enjoy our kama, our desires, and after all this dharma, artha and kama, this kama is related to our physical comfort. Everything, we feel happy when we are comfortable in our physical state as well as the mental state. So everything is with this human form that we have attained. And lastly, it says moksha. Moksha is that you have to give up the attachment to this physical body too. That is moksha. The main purpose of human form is to experience dharma, artha, kama, and also attain the liberation from such attachments. You have to be ready to give up things as you enjoy it, and at right time, at one time, everybody must give up, be ready to give up your own physical comfort as well as your own physical body. So, here naturally to balance this prakriti, we have jananam and maranam. Birth is there and death is definitely there. But what is in between is dharma, artha and kama, and moksha is the one which is before the death. That means you can remain alive, detaching yourself from the attachment of your physical body, and through physical body, what all you enjoy, all these things you get detached. So this is the main aim of our human form. For this one, to tell this and bring a person realize this, experience this, for that only we have so many shastras which we saw from Veda to today's kavyas. So for this thing, Charaka Samhita says, to experience this, what you need is arogyam moolam. For everything you need arogyam. You should be free of diseases. That's why we need to have the knowledge of Ayurveda. Then, how Ayurveda treats a person, hetuhu, it thinks about the cause of a disease. Linga, it thinks on it studies the symptoms, then prepares the aushadham. So these are the 3 sutras of Ayurveda. So these are the Amalaki, Ashwagandha, these are the names of herbs, and just I am sharing this slide because you can be familiar with these names. You have the references of these herbs in all the literature of Sanskrit. And even we have today, some of the diseases are very popular and they have equivalent terminologies in Ayurvedic text, like age-related muscular degeneration means jara janya drishti bindu kshaya. Then this is very popular. AIDS and HIV is vyadi bala kshamata vriddhi kamaka. kamaka. So out of passion, whatever disease has come, this is what is related to AIDS. Then anxiety neurosis is manodvega. So like that, some of the research scholars have actually traced the similar terms of modern terminology on diseases to the ancient Sanskrit names that are available in Ayurveda Shastras. Then we have yoga. Yoga is said as a sister philosophy to Ayurveda, and we have Bhagavan Patanjali. There is a prayer on Bhagavan Patanjali. It goes like this: Yogena Chittasya Malena Vacha Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Munina Patanjalim Pranjali Ranatosmi. So Patanjali is said to have written 3 treatises. Yogena Chittaha. We know that Prasannatmendriya Manaha is related to the good health. So he wrote Yoga Shastra. Patanjali Yoga Sutras is written by Bhagavan Patanjali. And this is for Chitta Shuddhi. This is to clean the mind condition. They say, what is yoga? Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The thought process, what is there? We have to master the thought process. We say that I would like to get up at this time, but I am not able to. That means we don't have a mastery over our thoughts. We are driven by the thought process, but we don't have control over it. So they say, don't say it's a control. That means this is the nature of a mind. Mind is unsteady. It's a prakriti. It's a nature of the mind. But we can master it. We can actually take the role of driving the mind to what we need. So such is to attain such a state, we should have the knowledge of yoga and practice yoga, and for that sake Patanjali gave Yoga Sutra. And another one is Vak. There are problems that comes to our communication. We want to say something and we use some other word. Then we should know to use the right word at the right time. The aptness of using words. That means grammatical knowledge is needed, communication skill is needed to give an emphasis over the pure communication. He gave the commentary on Vyakarana Shastra, which is called Mahabhashyam. It's a vast literature. There is a saying that Mahabhashyam va pathaniyam, Maharajyam va shasaniyam. Reading Mahabhashya is something equivalent to administer a big kingdom. So such work he has given to have control over our speech. Control over the speech is very, very important. That also comes under a part of Ayurveda. Then we have Yogena Chittaha for speech. He has given Vyakarana, and he has also given an Ayurveda treatise for Kaya, for this physical body. We have to note this word Kaya and Sharira. They are not equivalent terms. Kaya is the physical body with these limbs, but Sharira is that which is with the life, actually, which is with prana. So a live body only is called as Sharira. So such are the very special terms which we cannot just like that relate with common words. So Sharira, Ayurveda was the study was not done on cadavers. The study and Ayurveda principles, Ayurveda theories, methodologies, all these were given for the live body, and these studies were also made in the state of live condition only, because for example, the property of a dead body is different from the property of a live body. So they say that dissecting the dead body, finding the functions and the functions of the nerves, arteries, the shape of the heart, like this they didn't try. They actually felt, they went into contemplation, they went into a deep meditative state, and they related their pranic shakti with each and every part of the creation actually. Then they formed this anatomy of Ayurveda Shastra. Then apart from this Ayurveda Shastra, it is not only for human health, it is the Ayurveda is also for the plants and flowers. For trees we say Vriksha Ayurveda, for flowers we say Pushpa Ayurveda, for animals we say Shalihotra Shastra, and for elephants, especially precisely for elephant means it is Gaja Ayurveda and Ashwa Ayurveda, and this Ayurveda Shastra goes on for all living beings. So, ma'am, please tell me if I am going out of time. Please just remind me where I can stop.
In 5 more minutes, ma'am.
Yes. So, 1 second. Let me give some quotes. 1 second. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So just here, I couldn't prepare a PPT. We can see Ayurveda in Vedas. If we see some of the references, all these footnotes are the references that is there in the Vedic literature, and Ayurveda is there in Brahmanas and Aranyakas. All these are Vedic literature only. We can see in Aitreya Brahmana, the sense organs and their functions are defined. Then Anjana, actually Anjanam, we put Kajal, right? So actually now we put many black colored items, but Anjana is a why the tradition means to remove, because there is no capillaries beyond this thing. There is no veins or capillaries that is there in the eyes. So to purify eyes, to remove the dust, there is a certain black color material was prepared that was called Anjanam. Anjana is to remove the dust automatically. When you put Anjanam prescribed in Ayurveda, you can see the dust coming and they get collected in the corner of this eye. And also there is a description of tears also in our Kavya. So how you can differentiate if someone weeps, like whether it is the tear out of happiness or a tear out of depression. So they say that when it is a tear out of depression, you can see the tears coming from this corner of the eye, and when it is tear out of happiness, you can find the tears coming. This is called coming from this corner of the eye, which is called Ananda Ashru. Ashru is tear. When it is Ananda Ashru, that you can feel the tears coming from this. So like that, these references are in many Kavya literature when they actually deal with the emotions. So such symptoms we can see. And even with this thing, we can also see a person, our own friends' tears, and find in what state of mind they are and help them. Then in Upanishads also we find, in Chandogya Upanishad, digestion and metabolism is explained. Then Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there are descriptions on nadis, and there is a word for Hridaya, we say, which is heart. How this word is related to heart. it is derived with three roots, hr, the and ya. In Shatapada Brahmana also, as well as in this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a line, harater, dadater, yater iti hridayam. Harati, the root of this verb, harati means to take, to receive. The root of this verb is hr. Then dadati means to give. Da is the root of this verb. Yati means movement. So yati means which keeps on moving. So ya is the root of this verb. So receiving and giving back and creating a movement. This is what is the function of a heart, circulation of blood. So what does the heart do? Harati, dadati, yati. Take the root verbs, the root of these verbs, hr, the, ya. Like this, the word became hridaya. And in Dharma Shastras also we can find, and in Bodhayana Grihya Sutra, we have the three details on treatment of baby, grahas, bhutas, etc. And I'm just moving fast. So we can find so many such references in Kavyas. In Kalidasa's work, when he actually inquires about the health of Parvati when she is doing a penance in the forest, he says, Shiva comes and talks to Parvati and asks, how are you? So, how are you? He is asking, Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. So, are you okay? Because Shariram is what is more important for doing your dharma, doing your duty. So like that, importance of health is being given. So now I would like to share an important one. So far, whatever I said, you can actually see these things in the website itself. There are so many slide shares. One thing which I wanted to emphasize through this lecture, and the purpose of this lecture is also, like while translating these technical terms, we cannot just directly just to say that whatever is there in medical science, it is already told in ancient things. To relate such things, some absurd translations are there, like veins are translated, the shira, that is sira. Sira in Ayurvedic Shastra is translated as vein in modern medical science. But it is not that. So one example I will quote. Let me explain what is actually veins and what is actually sira in Ayurveda Shastra. Veins are the vessels carrying bluish carbon dioxide laden blood back to the heart are the veins. Veins are thinner and less elastic, and they tend to have valves that help the blood flow back to the heart. Because the heart's action is far away, veins need help in moving blood back towards the heart. Curiously enough, many veins get that help from neighboring arteries. With each heartbeat, the artery swells, squeezing the parallel veins. Inside the veins, one-way valves open and close to keep the blood moving. This is what is seen in the anatomy when we actually see about veins. What is sira in Ayurveda Shastra? In Sushruta Samhita, we have this reference. There are 700 siras by which the body is nourished, like a garden by water carriers and like field of irrigating channels, and also they are benefited with activities such as contraction, extension, etc. The two examples of irrigating channels indicate the functions of small and large blood vessels. Out of these, 40 siras are root ones, such as 10 each carrying the doshas, vata, pitta, kapha, and rakta. When they reach the sites of the respective dosha, yakka, sliha in case of rakta, they each they get divided into each branch into 175, thus siras become 700. So as we can see, veins, the term used in the modern Western medicine with a specific definition, refers specifically to the vessels that carry blood that is deoxygenated back to the heart. Siras, on the other hand, as we can see from the authentic description in Sushruta Samhita, rise from the Nabhi. Nabhi is the navel cavity. Even if the term Nabhi refers to the heart, the siras are 40 in number that are rising from Nabhi, through which 30 of them are said to carry Vata, Pitta and Kapha respectively, and 10 of them are said to carry a dhatu called Rakta. Also, whereas the veins carry the blood from the body to the heart, the siras carry Vata, Pitta, Kapha and Rakta from the Nabhi to each part of the body. Except from 10 siras not originating from the body, not going to the heart, are carrying the dhatu called Rakta. Therefore, even the substances that is said to be carried by the veins and siras do not even vaguely match. This is the reference. I am not going to read the Sanskrit part of it. Therefore, the veins and the siras are said to be originating arguably in different places, carrying a different substance to a different place. Therefore, siras are not veins. Like that, we can actually trace the common translation, like the rasa is translated as lymph and plasma. Dhamanis are translated as arteries, which have completely different thing. So we should be very careful in dealing with such medical terms, because it may give a wrong idea, wrong approach, and it will also do a harm to the Vedic science. So with this thing, hope I have actually justified my topic, and thanks for this opportunity, and thank you, madam. Now I conclude my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Uma Maheswari. That was a range, and it was very insightful and very rewarding, from the Vedas to the Kavyas. You gave us a phenomenal sweep. I think we should have a special day exclusively to listen to you again. We hope to follow this up with Dr. Preeti and have a special lecture by you, because the area is so vast and so engaging. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, just a couple of them, because we are running short of time, and then we will move on. Yes.
Ma'am, we are not able to hear you, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
You may be.
Thank you for that very insightful thing on Ayurveda. I always take to Ayurvedic medicine, so I was very comfortable in this area. And thank you for also pointing out that so much of translation, and in the modern age, it's very difficult. We get the wrong view of things. And okay, and to sum up again, to connecting the first lecture and the second, I'd like to introduce you to one book I have read by Malavika Kapoor. Malavika Kapoor is an ex, child hair person from Nimhans. She's written a number of books on counseling children with psychological problems, psychological perspectives of childcare in Indian indigenous health systems, and so on. But what I read is not all of these. I read she has introduced the life of Jivaka. I don't know. You did mention pediatric Ayurveda. Yeah, Kashyapa, a student of Kashyapa, the only person who has written on pediatrics is this Jivaka. And the life of Jivaka.
He is not only a pediatric. He is not only a pediatric. He is also the neurologist.
Right. He has done. Actually, I don't know all of these things. I read the book called Jivaka, the Child Who Heals, by Malavika Kapoor, and it's a kind of autobiographical, but at the same time a very literary work. In two phases, she's written on that book, and how that book came to be written, how that child was influenced by the mother's intentions, the mother who left a lady who is called Vatsaini in that book. 15-year-old mother who gets, of course, impregnated through a sage called Richika. But her one aim in life, even at that point, was not to marry anybody else, but to marry a person whom she thought will be able to give the world something great. And so the child learns, even when she was about 7 or 8, I think he's declared a healer. In according to that story, which is given into modern and phases, telling that children can be influenced even in their wombs by the kind of the orientation they have. So I'd like to introduce you to that book, and please read it. It's also one of those enlightening books on which connects both Ayurveda, because this doctor has taken a lot of insights from traditional Ayurvedic medicine, which normally other doctors do not. She used to practice both. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that recommendation
most
on
of
Malavika.
the references are in the Buddhist literature.
Yes, Buddhist. Yeah, it was. I think the book was reclaimed in modern times from Nepal or someplace. That book got lost, and I believe that Samhita came back to the world, to Ayurveda,
Yes,
from
and
that.
it's a dialect of the Buddhist literature.
That's what she
Buddhist
says in that
literature
book.
were
Because I was interested in
the
the way
dialects
she connected.
of Prakrita and Pali.
Ah.
Because I confined myself with Sanskrit literature.
Yes.
So I just
It was written in Pali. Yeah,
there
no,
are
it was written in
so
Sanskrit
many
only, and
things,
there were some works on.
so many books, and so many later Christians. Actually, it is very difficult to
I know.
complete everything here, bring
Actually, this
everything.
plot I read some time back, and I spoke about this book to somebody. Some other forum earlier, because I was interested in it because of my interest in Ayurveda. So I thought it connected both of the first speaker and the second speaker, and so I gave that insight. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for Malavika Kapoor. The range of books that she has written, especially other books on clinical psychology, is amazing. And
Yeah,
this one is a
thanks for the
revelation.
reference.
Jivika, yeah, yes,
All of us can read this. I don't know whether we can read the other things.
yes. Thank you, ma'am. If there are no other questions, thank you, Dr. Uma Maheswari, for those rich and variety of insights. And now we'll move on to the next presenter, Miss. I'll call upon Miss Janani. Just a minute. Miss Janani will be talking on belonging, external to internal sickness in Alexis Wright's Planes of Promise. Over to Miss Janani. She is a language instructor with Karky Research Foundation, Chennai. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Okay. Happy morning to one and all present here. I'm Janani. I would like to share my thoughts on Australia, its indigenous people, their sufferings, racial discrimination, and their mental trauma. Belonging, external to internal sickness in Alexis Wright's Planes of Promise. This novel is set in the 20th century Australia. So here's a short background to the 20th century Australia. Racism in Australia is something different from other parts of the world. Here, it was more psychological than physical abuse. Racism in general means the treatment of the people in terms of skin color. The dominant race, mostly whites, would treat the other races as slaves, animals, and whatnot. In other parts of the world, at least they considered them as the other. Whereas in Australia, they wanted to banish the Aboriginals altogether. Initially, it started with genocides. Later, the white government in the 1900s did not want a third race to emerge. So they formulated a cruel policy called White Australia policy. Through this policy, they followed a process called assimilation, in which they separated the Aboriginal children from their parents and put them in foster homes, which are miles and miles away from their place. Once the children are separated, they won't be able to see their parents for years together or maybe never again. The main idea behind this policy was to abolish the indigenous culture as they had an oral tradition. Through continuous inter-race relationship, that is one Aboriginal, it may be either a man or a woman, they are compelled to marry a white man or woman. The appearance of their children changes similar to white, which helps in easy assimilation of them into white society. Such children were called as half-caste children. They started questioning their identity as they were neither accepted by the indigenous people or the white people. Such generation, about 3 to 4 generation of these people were called as the stolen generation. Only in the 1970s, this policy was lifted. In the late 20th century and in the beginning of the 21st century, indigenous writers started publishing their works, which made the world see the dark side of Australian history. One such writer is Alexis Wright. She belongs to the Wani nation in the highlands of the southern Gulf of Carpentaria. She is a land rights activist and also a writer. Her first acclaimed novel is Plains of Promise, which was published in 1997. It has been nominated for several literary awards. This novel, Plains of Promise, it is set in the 20th century Australia. Christian missionaries, their domination over the Aboriginals, abuse of the Aboriginals, forceful adoption, sexual abuse, government policies, mental illness, psychological abuse, spiritual beliefs of the Aboriginals are covered in this novel. Important characters in this books are Ivy's mother, Ivy, Mary, the daughter of Ivy, and Errol Jip, the missionary in charge of the orphanage of St. Dominic's Mission in the Northern Territory. Okay. The first half of the novel narrates the story of Ivy. Ivy has suffered from racial abuses and brutal tortures throughout her life. As a young girl, aged 7, she was forcefully separated from her mother and was put in a girls' orphanage in St. Dominic's Mission, as she is a half-caste. Unable to bear the separation, her mother sets herself on fire and kills herself. Following her, many Aboriginal women who faced similar issues committed suicide in the same way. Because of this, the Aboriginals in the mission think of Ivy and her mother as a curse and consider it as a sickness. So, the fellow Aboriginal girls and the fellow Aboriginal people in the mission torments Ivy brutally. Further, as she's a half-caste girl, she gains the attention of Errol Jip, the missionary in charge, who continuously abuses her sexually. Though the Aboriginal people in the mission knows about this, they blame Ivy for seducing him. The situation gets worse when Ivy becomes pregnant at the age of 13. Her daughter is separated from her even before she sees her. This puts her in a trauma. Finally, she was sent to the mental hospital for her illness. She suffers from a kind of neurosis. According to Sigmund Freud, a neurosis represents an instance where the ego's efforts to deal with its desires through repression, displacement, etc. fails. Ivy, in particular, suffers from psychoneurosis. Psychoneurosis is the result of past events and psychological conflicts involving the unconscious. It is caused by external traumatic events as Ivy faces in the novel. The second half of the novel is a parallel story of Mary, Ivy's daughter. She also has a daughter from a man who leaves her pretty quickly. She finds about her Aboriginal identity after the death of her adoptive parents. She works with a city-based organization for Aboriginal rights. They organize a pan-Aboriginal political action which triggers the government of Australia, and Mary suffers from government action. She suffers from mental and emotional abuse similar to her mother. Despite undergoing such psychological denigration, she has an innate strength and courage to fight back. To conclude, we can see a sense of lack of belonging and identity crisis in the central characters. It is caused by the racial discrimination of the whites and the spiritual beliefs of the Aboriginals. It makes both the communities reject the identity of the half-castes. This feeling of the half-castes leads to a psychological trauma. Now, only 3% of the Australian population are Indigenous. Though the government is now acknowledging the culture and heritage of the Aboriginal people, the ill effects it has caused in the past cannot be restored. Books like these throws light on such human cruelties. Though we cannot change that, at least we can prevent such actions in the future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Janani, for those insightful insights. How the girl is treated as a cursed girl by the Aborigines because of her half-caste, hyphenated identities, we call them, and how they get a negative label. Not only that, biopower, when it is exercised on people, Michel Foucault uses the word biopower, and how when it is exercised on the people, they don't get to voice themselves. They are under the medical gaze. This is the term he uses in his Birth of the Clinic, 1963. So the medical gaze objectifies them and gives them all kinds of pejorative labels. Thank you for those rich insights. If there are any questions, you may ask Ms. Janani. Introduce yourself and ask a question. Yeah, if there are no questions, thank you, Ms. Janani. Thank you so much. Now we'll move on to the last presenter, Professor Sam Golden from Madras Christian College. Over to you, Professor Sam Golden. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yeah.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. I thank Dr. Rufus, sir, and Dr. Preeti, ma'am, for this opportunity. And we had heard a lot on the various literary texts based on medicine and about the narrative therapy. We also had a wonderful session on the importance of medicine in Sanskrit literature. Adding on, we also looked at the lives of Aboriginal of Australia and the trauma that they undergo. And now I would like to highlight the role of medical professionals, their status in literature, and their role in contemporary society for the well-being of everyone. So I'm happy to present my paper entitled Beauty and Nursing Aesthetics of Caretakers in Jayakanthan's Kurai Piravai. This is a short story written by Jayakanthan. Literature and medicine has always walked hand in hand for centuries for the well-being of humanity. Poems, novels, short stories, and other literary texts are great resources for the medical professionals to understand clinical stories of pain and suffering. The discipline of literature and medicine focuses on diseases, illness, health, disability, violence, trauma, and the cultures of biomedical science as represented in literate texts. It also includes the roles of doctors, nurses, midwives, auxiliary nurse midwives, and various other medical professionals. And the contribution of literature and medicine has created greater impacts in the lives of people. So this paper focuses on the aspects of beauty in the physical and bodily nature and the aesthetics of the act of nursing performed by caretakers. The concept of beauty in human beings, particularly in women, is often associated with clear facial features, smooth skin, and well-proportioned body. Beauty is defined both from an objective perspective and also from a subjective view. The objective view on beauty is often conventional, and it pays more attention on shape, color, and form. While on the other hand, the subjective view of beauty claims to be found in the eye of the beholder. The objective beauty based on shape, color, and form is given much more importance by the common folk or the people. So several medical conditions bring deformities in shape, color, and form of men and women equally. Health conditions like Noonan syndrome result in unusual facial features and short height apart from heart diseases and the bleeding problems that they undergo. While on the other hand, Pitt-Hopkins syndrome also projects distinctive facial features including thin eyebrows, sunken eyes, prominent nose, and widely spaced teeth. Moreover, you can even see the victims of burns and acid attack undergo physical deformity after the accident. These are very few examples amidst the several medical conditions that deform the facial features and the physical appearance of an individual. So these deformities make them look ugly from the perspective of objective beauty, as they don't have the features that people considered to be normal. So individuals with such physical deformities undergo a lot of discrimination as they are pitied for their appearance. But on the other hand, they are not accepted as normal people. This can even create psychological trauma in them. When these people with a physical disability or deformity in appearance try to take care of others, it becomes a more complicated issue, because while they are not even accepted as normal fellow human beings, they are hardly accepted in the field of medicine as caretakers or nurses or doctors. Jayakanthan presents such a character in his short story Kurai. Jayakanthan is a well-known Tamil novelist and short story writer whose works focus on people who live in different situations and the emotions that they undergo in different circumstances. He is skilled in capturing the real emotions of people under pain and suffering. So this short story, Kurai, as the title suggests, highlights the character of Sally, who Jayakanthan describes as an incomplete human being and a defective born individual. Though Sally is in her 20s, her physical appearance is that of a 12-year-old. And on the other hand, her facial features are that of a 30-year-old. She has a wrinkled face, less than 4 feet high, bleached and anemic skin, and protruding teeth. So this presents her as an ugly creature from the objective perspective of beauty, which is conventional. Except for her sister Ranjidam, there's no one who liked her appearance. So the unpleasant appearance of individuals due to various medical conditions are termed as ugly, and people treat them with disgust without understanding their psychology or their understanding. And this in turn creates psychological trauma in those individuals, keeping them away from the common folk. As Jayakanthan describes, Sally is first appointed as the caretaker for the infant Balu, a small boy. The first encounter of Sally with Balu's father, Rajaraman, turns out to be a bitter one, and that creates a stronger scar in her mind. The unpleasant appearance of Sally nauseates Rajaraman in his mind, and he couldn't stand the sight of Balu playing on the lap of Sally. So, the unacceptance of such individuals with certain medical conditions is highlighted in this short story. And here you can see that people try to frown at patients having such deformed physical appearance to show their unacceptance and contempt towards them. And Rajaraman could not understand the inner beauty of Sally, who accepted to be the caretaker of Balu. The psychological trauma keeps people with deformities who volunteer for caretaking away from the crowds, but they yearn for the love of others. Since they're not accepted by the society to do other works, they have a keen interest in caretaking. They look for some space, be it a human or an animal, for them to express their love. So Sally loved Balu very much that she did not even listen to Pankajam, Balu's mother, when she was fixing the salary for caretaking. But when Rajaraman shouted at his wife for taking in a devil, that is the word that he uses, to be the caretaker for Balu, Sally just left the house and never turned back. She was psychologically disturbed when a comment on her medical condition is said aloud to demean her. Even Jayakanthan points out that Sally is so fond of humans, not only humans, even cats and dogs. But only these cats and dogs accepted her love. There's always a disappointment in Sally, as her love towards human beings is never reciprocated. People expect even the caretakers to be beautiful in their physical appearance despite their aesthetics of nursing. The nursing aesthetics or the aesthetics of nursing expresses the artistic nature of nursing care of the caretakers by appreciating the act of caring for the children or even adults and elderly individuals. Despite the fact that Sally is an incomplete human form, she lacks nothing in the art of nursing. She could keep the child happy and not let him cry so that Pankajam, Balu's mother, could sleep peacefully. The, the act of nursing that she showcased in the time of need is very much appreciated. Knowing the fact that Balu has got chickenpox and that is contagious, she accepted to be by his side until he recovers. The caretakers try to present this in the best way that they can so that their physical appearance doesn't make people frown. Bright appearance does really appeal those who are sick and sorrowful and has the vibrancy to spread good thoughts and hope amidst hopelessness. But understanding the importance of physical appearance and afraid of rejection to look after Balu, Sally had applied turmeric all over her body, excuse me, took bath, combed her hair, put a bindi on her forehead, and tried to camouflage the physical abnormalities with a smile on her face. This is also evident of her efforts to create a perfect ambience for her service so that she can take care of the little child without the frowning of the parents. The caretakers had to pay more attention to even trivial things to make their act of nursing aesthetic. The society often ignores the roles of these caretakers and understand later when the time has passed to acknowledge. The caretakers extend their helping hands even at the crucial time of need, and they exhibit a selfless dedication and commitment in their service. Even after undergoing rejection, the caretakers do not heed to the past experiences but understand the need of the hour and jump into action. Sally realizes the pain and suffering of Balu, who is affected by chickenpox. The disease has put him in isolation, and even his mother is not allowed to go near the child. The awareness regarding the medicine is not sufficient, and so the child was put in a outhouse outside the bungalow. The contagious nature of the disease imparts fear in Ranjidam, Sally's sister, who takes care of Balu since Sally left Rajaraman's house. The voluntary involvement and service of Sally shows the selfless nature of caretakers. Even after knowing that chickenpox is contagious and it spreads once it subsides in the other, Sally did not consider her own health. Rather, she was more concerned of the health of Balu. So this dedication and selfless care are evident of the aesthetics of the act of nursing. The concept of beauty is subjective in the caretakers. They never frown at the pathetic condition of the children or the elderly. Rather, they make things beautiful through their act of nursing. They see beauty in everything and try to enhance it. So, this is also reflective in the psychology of those who they take care of. So, Sally asks about the appearance of Balu's parents, and the child frowns. While when Balu is asked about the appearance of himself and that of Sally, he shows a bright face. The child never frowns at the appearance of Sally, and neither is he afraid of it. It is the adults who create the standards of beauty on the basis of shape, color, and form, and try to discriminate and pass on unnecessary comments on the appearance of individuals who has distorted physical appearance due to various medical conditions. The role of caretakers is recognized when time passes on or at times of life threatening circumstances. The beauty of the act of nursing suppresses the physical beauty and breaks the norms of the objective beauty based on shape, color, and form. The silence of Rajaraman and acceptance of Sally when she volunteers to take care of Balu shows the realization in Rajaraman and the idea of beauty in him. And when Sally gets chickenpox, she urges to be taken to hospital, and this shows the awareness being created through literature to the society that needs how to tackle situations during times like when there is a spread of chickenpox or other contagious diseases. So this paper concludes on the remarks that the real beauty of caretakers is in their character and not in the physical appearance based on shape, color, or form. The aesthetics of the act of nursing makes the caretakers beautiful, and it shows that their selfless act of dedication and commitment needs to be acknowledged. The well-being of the society rests in the hands of the caretakers who take care of them. who work in the local level, and it is literature which really brings out the magnanimous nature of nursing and caretaking. This also throws light on the life of people who undergo physical distortion due to various medical conditions, and it is made clear that they have a strong power to connect with those who undergo pain and suffering. An emphasis is made to ensure that the caretakers should be given proper acknowledgement and recognition in the society. To make it relevant to the contemporary society, chickenpox described in the short story Kurai Piravai is very much parallel to the corona infection that is contagious and deadly. The role of caretakers and frontline workers make them beautiful because of the aesthetics of nursing that they commit themselves to. It is time that we accept people with medical conditions that keep them away from others and those who work with selfless nature for the welfare of others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Golden, for those wonderful, thoughtful, thought-provoking insights on the caretakers, especially in the noblest of professions we call it. Those were amazing insights. Any questions for Professor Sam Golden? You may unmute yourself, introduce, and ask your questions.
Sir, not a question, but just to Mr. Sam's, Dr. Sam's presentation just acknowledged the Vedic term Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. The nurse was very truthful, and she was doing good service, it's an auspicious service, and that's why she is Sundaram, beautiful. So thanks. I could relate to your anecdote, your presentation with that word.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Beautiful. That was a wonderful, amazing connect. So thank you, everyone. It was a very rewarding, enlightening, fruitful, engaging morning. I don't think any other department would have been doing this in a continuous basis. This has been going on for such a long period of time. Symposias on literature, theory. Over a period of time, we've been having such rewarding sessions. I'll just give my quick observations in about 5 minutes and hand over the session to Dr. Preeti. So, literature, medicine, and well-being, an amazing topic that has amazing scope of further research. In the year 2000, Dr. Spivak, she went up to the president of a university. The reason was the University of Toronto was planning to close down its comparative literature program. So the president of the North Vice Chancellor, the president of the university, she walked up straight to him, handed over a letter, and told him, "You should not be doing this." And she gave a beautiful reason that validates her argument. You know what she said? Literature is healthcare for an entire culture, she said. I repeat, literature is healthcare for an entire culture. Although we have seen rich and varied interpolations between literature and medicine over the past 1 hour and more, and we have got many literary writers who have also doubled up as physicians, and they have given us rich insights. Citadel by A.J. Cronin, a famous medical doctor who talks about his medical profession and how it was instrumental in bringing out the National Health Service, and how the medical profession transformed after his wonderful insights in this book titled The Citadel. You should read it. And the latest one I read was Paul Kalani's When Breath Becomes Thin Air. Professor Dr. Dennisa Davidson and myself, we lost a younger cousin sister of ours to a dreaded disease a couple of years ago. And she was a medical doctor herself. She passed away on 28th January 2018. On 31st January 2018, I get this book presented to me by Dr. Archana Sardana, head Department of English, Anna Adarsh College. She didn't know anything about the passing away of her younger cousin. She was a wonderful, amazing, vibrant young medical doctor. But this book helped me, or helped us come over that grief. Because again, Paul Kalanidhi passed away because of cancer. And He's a literary soul basically. He did his master's in literature and then moved on to doing medicine. He is amazing, simply amazing. The rich literary insights that you find in the book, and how the book takes you on a journey through the journey, of his pain, of the angst that he underwent, and how he had a crisis in mind. The crisis was, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? Viktor Frankl is quoted again and again. What Dr. Dennisa mentioned, Viktor Frankl, in spite of the difficulties of the concentration camp, the Nazis torture there, he was a psychiatrist in the 1940s. This book came up in the 1946, Man's Search for Meaning. And here in this book, he says, even in the utmost negative situation, you can still have hope. I'll just conclude with a little story that connects with what Professor Sam Golden has said. This incident happened in Tennessee, we are told. There was a young boy, a little boy of about 3 years old, and he was told that they are expecting a little daughter. Some of us must have known this story. They were told that they were expecting a little daughter. And so the mom told the young boy, my dear son, you are expecting a little daughter any time. So we are going to the hospital to have her delivered. It was a C-section. But after she was delivered, the doctors told her that she has developed a condition which will not allow her to stay alive for long. She will have to die eventually, they said. But mom had already told this boy that they are going to get a sunshine. And this is the word she said, you are going to get a little sunshine very soon. Now this little boy was already dreaming of a sunshine. And so what happened was, when he was told that the sunshine was born, he was so happy at his home. He wanted to come and meet his sunshine. But unfortunately, doctors had advised them not to allow anybody, like in the case of this short story by Jayakanthan. No one was allowed inside except the caregivers, the nurses. So here, nobody was allowed inside. It was a very difficult situation at the ICU. Now, the mother was desperate. Everyone was desperate because they're going to soon see the fading away of a life. But the son didn't know any of these things. He was so curious. Why didn't mama introduce me to this, my little sunshine? So you know what he did? He straight away walked up to the clinic, the hospital, and knocked at the doors. You know what happened after that? The nurse saw him squeezing inside the hospital room, and he found that his little sunshine was there in the cradle. It was a steel cradle. She was there on the cradle. Now what happened was, he was forbidden from coming anywhere. Excuse me, Dr. Narmada Mohan, please, if you can mute. Yeah. So, he was not allowed near the cradle, the steel cradle that was there. And, but he was already told that his little sunshine is there in this room. Mother was happy and dejected at the same time because the son was about to see a girl who is going to soon wither away. Now, the son, he forced himself into the room near the cradle, but the nurse said, no, nothing doing. This is the ICU. Kids are not allowed at the ICU. He was taken out. Very soon, he came in with the dress or the coat of an elderly person. He was like a walking laundry, with a coat on him. He walked up to the sister, so curious. He looked into the cradle, and then he was smiling at this younger sister. See, now the situation is a hopelessness. The girl is almost going to die, but this guy held on to the cradle and he began singing the beautiful song, you are my little sunshine, when are you going to come home? You are my little sunshine, when are you going to come home? So when he sang this song to this girl, for the first time, the girl who didn't respond for many, many hours, for the first time she responded. With a smile in her eyes, she responded. The mom was surprised to see the response from this little girl. And from a distance, the nurses were looking at this particular incident. What's happening? And this guy continued on his singing. He said, you are my sunshine. When are you going to come home? When are you going to come and play with me? He said. Soon there was life within a girl who was dying. And in no matter of time, in about a couple of days, she was up, alive, hale and hearty, healthy, and she was back at home. Maths trains the mind, they say. Medicine trains the body, but literature trains the soul. It is critical health care for an entire culture. And so these interpolations tell us of this beautiful fact that literature and medicine together give us a harmonious well-being. Thank you for those excellent presentations. We had a very enriching, rewarding day today. Now over to Dr. Preeti Srinivasan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rufus, comrade in tandem, patron, so many adjectives, and thank you for even suggesting this topic for today's discussion. Thank you, Dr. Srilata. The presence of Dr. Srilata and Dr. Rufus in every session gives me some confidence to carry on with this work. So I would like to acknowledge both of you. As for the 4 paper presenters, you gave us a feast, food for the soul. And the difference between our research group and other research groups is that we are not in the rat race, because when knowledge is seen as a commodity which has to be acquired, and it is for climbing up the ladder. But we are into self-enrichment, and we think, and it goes without saying that very good quality of work, research work, comes from the soul. So whenever researchers approach us and ask, what should I research on? We only say, do whatever's close to your heart. And this is the lifeline that actually connects all of us here. So thank you, Dr. Dennisa, if you're there. Otherwise, Dr. Rufus, please convey to her for giving us a very good start, a soulful start. And, we couldn't have had a better body, mind, soul connect than Dr. Dennisa's presentation. And one of the things that touched me about her presentation was reading to the fetus, speaking to the fetus, reading to the fetus. And I kind of Googled up and I found that Ian McEwan has written a novel called Nutshell. And in this novel, the narrator is a fetus. And so the first line of the novel, I haven't read the book, but I'm reading from the Guardian article. The first line of the novel is, so here I am, upside down in a woman, arms patiently crossed, waiting, and wondering whom I'm in and what I'm for. So that is one thing. And then Dr. Sam Golden, somehow your paper took me to my early reading of Florence Nightingale, and her commitment to nursing, and and also about caregivers. So well, you were talking about the objectification of caregivers and their having to be good looking and that kind of thing. Somehow the world of of commercial interest always kinds of worms its way in and spoils humanity.
Yes.
So you rightly pointed out that it's the beauty of the soul that and we should not fall into all these other traps that the world lays for us. And Janani, that was a beautiful connection you made without by being very sensitive, because Dr. Rufus rightly pointed out that in our analysis of racism and all these things, we might unwittingly make pejorative remarks, and we might unwittingly get into labeling. that, people who have this social problem have this issue and that issue. And appreciated your sensitive handling of that topic of the trauma that people of the stolen generation go through. And Dr. Uma, thank you for leading us into a world that many of us are not conversant with. But there's so much to explore. And I would like to let our speakers of the day know that the objective of this forum is to encourage young researchers, especially our PG students. So our target audiences are first and second PG students who are looking for areas of research. So we are doing this kind of firing on the mind by opening up so many vistas of research. And I think it is keeping us also intellectually engaged and keeping us healthy in mind and spirit. So I thank my colleagues for coming here, turning up today, and sharing the spirit of this forum with me. I always think, that we have to live up to that title that we bear, PG and Research Department. We have earned it. We have earned that, and we need to keep that up through our research work. So thank you, friends and students, for being there.
Thank you, man.
Yes.
Angeline?
Yes. Today we had a novel insight of our session. I thank the chairperson and the presenters who had their treasured contribution for us. We learned new dimensions of literature and medicine and its engaging productive field of study, where the attention of the world should be turning from materialistic thoughts to achievements of human well-being. I thank our principal, Dr. Uma Maheswari ma'am, and our head of department, Dr. Maria Priti Srinivasan ma'am, for their continual support. I also thank faculty and the scholars for being a part of this learning platform. Thank you all, and we will be meeting on 4th February 2022 at 6 p.m. with a new topic, multiculturalism. Do tune in with us and enjoy the journey of learning. I hope you all have an amazing health and happy mental. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Dear presenters, we would like to tell you that we'll be giving you certificates. We wanted to share it on the screen, but it's not ready as of now. So in future, we will be sharing the certificate on the screen and giving you an applause for your presentation, but your certificate will reach you. Thank you.
Ma'am, more than the certificate, I feel very privileged to get connected with this research department. Thank you very much for making me a part of this.
Nancy's got the certificates ready, and I have to, always acknowledge the presence of Nancy. Without Nancy, we wouldn't be. She does all the, making of the invites and the link and works. The work behind the scenes is entirely Nancy's. So thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Narmada, also, both president and secretary of the In Tandem Club. Nancy, share the certificates, yes. So congratulations to our participants, and we're very happy to give you this certificate from our college. Awarded, it will get it signed by our principal and Dr. Rufus and myself. It will reach you soon.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for making it a very rewarding day for us. Thank you.
I know that is all that I have to say too. So happy to be part of this. And I didn't know I had so many books. I should be reading some of them again. All these books I have, some of them I have now. So for
I
me, it
have
is read a few of these.
students, you so much about English literature in this book.
SIS library. Well-being so that children, even